today, it's funny because we're all over the place, which this is my home.
Right.
I live there. It's all about ADHD because Amir...
Which this studio must make you crazy. Honestly, to sit here and do the show, I'm distracted. We've got 5 cameras. We've got people that we see through a glass window.
May I just say, we only pay for 3. Okay, yeah.
Right. We got papers, we got things. How do you...
The hardest thing for me, and I'll break the wall, is not doing this, because I've interviewed people for years, and I'm fascinated. That's my default. You know me. We go to restaurants, and I'll know everything about the waiter, the bathroom attendant. I love that.
Constantly interviewing.
What breaking the wall is that we have 4 shows. We do multiple shows in a day.
Right.
Changing my head to not have all that noise inside about the other shows, and then be able to focus on this. I'm curious.
And to shut out your life, too, because we all have things going on in our lives. And
there's stuff.
Yeah.
So what I've done, because I've done, and you'll laugh, I've done radio so long, but I had to perform. It's like you on stage. When you go on stage, even if you have family stuff,
yes,
it goes away and you can focus on that.
Yes, but here's the difference. When I go on stage, especially if I'm doing a scripted piece, I'm not... I know what I'm doing. I'm focused. I'm locked into something. So I'm not... I'm not going, what should I say now? What should I do next?
To your point, I try and then go, okay, we got the Holderness. I'll give an example of this. The Holderness family's coming in. I start to agonize about how do I present the really, no, really. So I got to get in my head, the really, no, really is that Amir, who's our publicist and more, alerted me to this family because they wrote, and I have ADHD, they wrote a book and have done videos on ADHD is awesome. And I go, really?
Really? No, really? Really? No, really? Really?
But here's, just so people understand, when we say ADHD, these are the things that Peter, I'm going to read a list. Peter has, I'm going to say 92% of this list. Has trouble listening.
By the way, I'm laughing, and that's horrible.
Right. Has trouble listening and paying attention.
Excuse me?
Gets distracted easily. Seems absent-minded. You don't seem absent-minded to me. If anything, you're
I remember stuff.
You remember a lot of stuff. Yeah. You can't sit still, wait their turn, or be patient. Bing, 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 bing.
That's like terminal.
That's a big one. Rush through homework and other tasks and make careless mistakes.
No, but I do rush. I want to get through it.
Restless, fidgety, frustrated. Yes, you are. There's a body part of you always tapping, moving, going. Yeah. You're like Larry David. Larry David, I thought he was doing a bit. He was not doing a bit. But, by the time we started shooting a season of the show, they basically had 22 episodes, at least
worked out,
thought through, if not outlined, at least thought through, here's our major storyline, here's what we're going to tackle. But, and by season 4, we're a hit show. After every episode, as we were filming, we go, that's a wrap on episode 404. Larry David would cry out into the void, it can't be done again! It's impossible! No one can do this! And I'm going, you've been doing it for 4 years. You kind of know what we're doing next week. Could you really be this crazed about? And I've come to believe,
because that's where
it absolutely was real for him. He did not think. He felt he had set an impossible bar. I understand that. And that it just, and Jerry would be right beside, but they create together, side by side, holding hands. Jerry'd be like, it's fine. So let's meet these people who feel that what you have
is a superpower. And what I feel I have,
Clark,
is an immense deficit.
Let's say hello to our guests that have now joined us in studio.
1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, guys. We have the Holderness family. Penn and Kim have joined us here in studio, looking so much better than most people. I'll stop there. Looking so much better than most people.
I was coming here on my down days. This is my first stop. My ego, I'm like so full right now. This is amazing.
Come on.
This is amazing.
The two of you look like fitness models.
That's because they're fitness models.
In categories of people I do not like or relate to, fitness models are right at the very top.
They also did something we could not do. Well, maybe you could do it. They won the Amazing Race.
I could not do that for reasons that have nothing to do with your
You
superpowers.
could. You
no, I
you've
could
talked
not.
lovingly about your wife
Yes.
and the connection you have.
Yeah.
You guys would be amazing on the
Oh,
Amazing
let me
Race.
just tell you. Let me just tell you how wrong that would be. We'd be in the car. My wife, we flip gender stereotypes.
Okay.
I pull out of the driveway and I go, let's ask directions. And she
This
goes,
is
we
why
have a
you need
GPS
Preach.
and we have to go north. That's north. We'll get there. We'll get there. And I go, would it kill us to find out?
This is
if
great
we have to?
TV, though. This
Yeah,
is great
it's
TV.
great
TV, but
TV.
not, it doesn't
You,
enhance my image.
may not get there first.
I mean, that's what happens to us in real life.
Yeah.
But then when there's when $1 million are on the line and everyone's filming you, and you just agree not to yell
Yeah.
at each other, you
Yeah.
let someone be the navigator and someone the driver.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you guys would be perfect for that.
No. There's also,
Okay.
I don't like heights.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a heights person.
Yep.
I enjoy frequent bathroom stops.
Yeah, none of
things
that.
like that. You know,
We were just huge fans of the show
Mm-hmm.
as a family. So it was one of those things that, for some people, if Survivor was an option, they would go on. For us, it was The Amazing Race. So,
yeah.
Are you
I
the
have a
kind-
cousin who did Survivor many times.
Many
And
times.
because I know you probably can't talk about it now.
How the sausage
but
is made.
there are many things about reality TV
Yep.
that aren't very real, and so
I wish they would lift the veil on that some too. Like,
Yeah.
some of it's even kind of fascinating. Like the photographers are
Absolutely.
in better shape than we are. Like until a few years ago, they were carrying like those old news cameras, those giant news
Yeah,
cameras,
yeah.
running backwards at the same speed we were running forwards.
Are you the kind of couple who right from the beginning said we're going to win this and you never wavered on that? Or were you just in it and kind of navigating it each day going, oh my God, we should drop out. Oh my God, they're going to win it. Are you that positive?
Well, we're competitive as hell. I think that outwardly we told each other we're going to go there and have a great time and not let it bother us if we don't win. It's really about the experience and about, learning.
It would be a fun story to
Yeah.
tell your grandkids.
Yeah.
I was on The Amazing Race.
So-
yeah.
right.
Inwardly, do you want to take that one?
Well, I suffer from anxiety, depression, and also I'm very competitive. So when we didn't do well, I would get really pissed. So inwardly, I thought we could win, but I outwardly never said it.
It's an amazing
The real
thing to
question
do.
is,
I'll tell you, to win
when
that
they
thing.
showed up, did the other teams go, "Oh God damn it"?
No,
No, I think it was the other way around. We
Well,
were,
you know what?
Yeah, we're the
Good
oldest
looking.
combined couple,
Really?
age-wise.
They were
to ever win the race.
younger.
Everybody else, dude, they were shredded. They were in their younger 20s, and they looked like they had just worked out for 8 straight years. So we were.
And is that is that sort of being in top physical shape a real boost on that show, or is
Yeah,
to me
I
it
think
seems like a strategy thing more than
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I think we won because we knew how to read a map.
yeah.
Yeah, and so just being a little older helped.
Which, by the way, that's a big thing. I don't think my children can read a map.
No, we
And I don't mean
we
to
tried
None
to
of these
like,
children.
people had ever used a map.
Yeah.
Like the 20-somethings, they don't have to. They have phones.
Right.
And normally the show doesn't require too much self-driving.
Yeah.
But we stopped after the 3rd episode because we were in Scotland as COVID was making its way over to the United States. And so we flew home. I think we brought COVID with us. I'm not sure.
100%.
Like, and
You're welcome.
And
Thank you.
But we sat in our rooms, and then 18 months later they came back and found a way to restart the race. But they couldn't put us on any public transportation because it was still
Right, sure.
it was
Yeah.
almost all self-driving, which they don't normally do. And for that reason, we're old.
Yeah,
We've read maps.
yeah.
And it made a difference.
that's crazy.
I know that this podcast is not about reality TV.
She just gave me the okay. That means I've been talking a little bit too much.
Oh, really?
So,
Oh, I like those
okay,
little signals.
code. If you're
We're going to
upset,
get into
okay.
that. What's the difference between ADHD and ADD? Is there a difference?
No. ADD is attention deficit disorder.
Right.
ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But there's 3 different types of AD whatever. There's inattentive, there's impulsive, and there's a combination of the two.
Right.
Okay. Hyperactive, impulsive, and a combination of the two. So what happened was I think they made ADHD the catch-all term for everything. I'm a combination. There's a lot of people who are just inattentive and they would call themselves ADD. But I think it got to the point where doctors were talking about it so much and it was becoming a buzzword that they just let it go and said it's ADHD.
It's an umbrella term.
So we could effectively just lump it all into ADHD.
Yeah.
At this
Yeah.
point. Okay, great. Now,
So-
I understand where we are.
Well, the name sucks, so I'm glad that you brought it up.
yeah.
It's a
It does
bad
stick, and it's a negative. And I know that's, for me, like I said, I couldn't wait for you guys to come in because ADHD is awesome, is F you, okay? Because I've fought with this my entire life. Sitting through a class was a nightmare. Not shaking my foot is a nightmare. Reading and prepping for a show and then realizing I have to go back and write it down or I won't remember it. And meanwhile, I went over the shows with Jason without looking at the papers. So it's in here, but I need to know that it's in here because I don't trust it. To me, it's not a nightmare, but it's so difficult. And then you're calling it awesome. And then I read about athletes who it's a superpower for them because they can singularly focus on stuff. Talk about your diagnosis. Give us the backstory on how you found out, how it impacts you, so we can get some insight on how you got to the awesomeness of something negative.
Well, as a kid, I had some of the same issues that you did. I tapped my feet a lot. I shredded every single napkin I ever had in my hand when I was trying to eat dinner. Had a ring of, everyone thought it was sweat, but I would chew on my collar. These are all ways that you deal with trying to stave off distractions, actually, like these like tics.
It's a way to regulate, actually.
And so it's saliva. I would chew on my shirt and I have a ring of saliva all the way around like this as I was a kid. On top of that, as I'm sure you know, it's not like, okay, you do you. It's what's wrong with you? Like you're a total weirdo. You are a freak. You are different. You're saying things that are coming to the top of your head that make no sense. You can't make it to the end of conversations. Can't sit still. And so while I think I was a fairly highly functioning person mentally, academically, and all those other things, socially it was difficult. I got really upset very easily. So there's an emotional regulation part of it as well. And I would cry at the drop of a hat. And most people learn how to deal with that and put it away, like when they get to middle school. I had trouble with it in high school. So I knew that there was something wrong with me, but I'm not sure what age you are. You might be younger or older than me, but it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a diagnosable thing until I got to college. And that's when I got diagnosed. And it felt good to hear that there was an explanation for what was going on, but it felt really bad to hear the name. It was 3 negative words in one name. And I always think about like what a kid feels like when they're 8 years old and someone says deficit, hyperactivity, which we covered is not even necessarily true, disorder. And so I found a way to get around it. Medication was my answer for about a year, got me through college, graduated from college because of the medication. And then luckily found people who I think I regulated a little better when I got older, but I also found people who understood and were accepting of the person that I was. And I found a job like you that is perfect for ADHD, which is local news where you have 8 seconds to keep people from getting bored to death. A lot like the entertainment business.
It saved me.
Yeah.
It really saved me. I could prepare for the show. I can do a segment. I can do the hour. I can even do the 4 hours because I'm completely focused and I got to be here now. You know, the Baba Ram Dass thing where my mind is never here now. It's always a lot of places. So I had to be because I'm publicly doing it. And I never realized that till about 2 or 3 years in, that this was manageable, that I could fake it for 4 hours a day. I was depleted after that because it took every ounce of energy. But it's exactly what this is. It's momentary. It's pieces. It's chunks, chapters. That's how I look at the day.
Micro deadlines.
Yeah, micro deadlines.
Penn, how much do you think, because you talked about the medication was beneficial for a year and then you found that you could wean off of it. I know people in my life who have both anxiety and depression situations and some degree of, I don't think quite as pronounced as perhaps what you were dealing with, but do you think that hormonal changes as you go through different ages either helps or compounds this condition?
So the theory is, and this is just scientific studies, obviously when you get older and you get hormones and you mature, I think it's more about getting older and your executive functioning catching up. Like scientifically, your executive functioning doesn't fully develop until you're 25. But certain parts of it, kind of slowly make their way there. It's just our prefrontal cortex is smaller. I know I'm not a scientist, but I've heard this from other people. So we just develop later. And it can feel like when you're the parent of a child or the friend of someone, that there's just something wrong with them because they're, that maybe that it doesn't even exist, this ability, when in fact it just takes a little bit longer. So I know I'm not really answering your question because I'm not sure about hormones, but I do know that all of these things come later, but the hormones come on time. And so then that leads to a lot of emotional dysregulation, right? Like I got furious just because of my inability to regulate my emotions when I was younger. And luckily I found a way to take it out without like hitting someone, but I would get so mad I couldn't even stand it. And I'm sure that was the infusion of hormones without the ability to regulate.
So you know what it sounds like when one of my kids, when he was younger, had some of these issues. I mean, I don't know that we would have necessarily categorized it like this, but there was a book that we read that was very helpful called The Highly Intelligent, Easily Frustrated Child. And what struck me about that is at the time, the indication was my child was brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, he is brilliant, but he's not, he's not going to win the Nobel Prize. But it seems to me like a lot of the younger kids I meet that have some of this condition are actually really bright. Their minds are very sharp, and whether it's academically sharp or observationally sharp, or they see the patterns and things, almost like to the wild extent, a Rain Man kind of thing, who could look at the dropped matches and go, 286. But do you find that was part of your experience as well? And is it generally considered part of dealing with this condition?
So one of the best things about ADHD is if you think of your executive functioner, like it's like your CEO, right? You're part of the brain that's your CEO, and it decides what to take in. And one of the reasons we're so distracted is because we take in everything. We have more attention than other people. That's why it's the worst name ever. We don't know where to focus it or how to manage that attention. But because of that, I've always felt very creative because of all of these things I'm taking in, and how much input and how much we're processing, maybe even compared to the neurotypical brain, just turning it around and getting it back out of your mouth or a piece of paper can be challenging. But I mean, definitely have felt the same way, that like every ADHD person that I've spoken to seems to be moving at this unbelievable pace that speaks intelligence to me.
Man.
It's so funny that you say I've never really talked about
Except
this.
Peter, by the way.
Except for Peter.
I just need to tack that
High
on.
five, kidding.
Thank you, brother.
Kidding. Love you. Okay, not. The weirdest thing is, like, we'll be in a crowd of 10,000 people, and later on I'll say to my wife, did you see that actor that, she goes, how did you see that? And I also said, did you see the woman who did the thing with the hat? What? When you did call it, instead of inactivity, it's this hyper activity. I do feel like I'm taking in tons of information all the time. And the weird thing is, since COVID and the internet and streaming, there's an opportunity to take in even more. And I'm insatiable. He knows this. I'll go down every rabbit hole there is, because I'll read an article and go, well, how come that? And then I got to find out who that person is and where did they go and why did they go? And I'm juggling 40 of those things at any given time. And my wife knows to say, did you hear the story about? And I go, yeah. And what's that about? And I'll tell her. And it's not because I want to know it. It's because I can't not know it. It's really, do you have that same thing where you have to know, when you see stuff, you have to know what it's about?
Yeah, I do. And I'm so lucky to have a wife who understands that this is how my brain works. And a lot of it had to do with the book that we wrote, that we understood, because she could be saying something really important to me while I'm curious about these things. And it would, because I have to know about this, whatever she just said never entered any part of my working memory. So I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
And ask if you'd like to chime in on this a little bit.
Does he also do this? My wife's working, we both work from home. She's an editor and stuff. I will tell her something important that's apropos or linked to nothing else in the world. Just a random, did you see what happened with the today? And she's like, where did that come from and why? And then 10 minutes later say, oh, I can't believe this happened. Yeah. So she's used to getting these disparate pieces of information that are fascinating, but totally unrelated. Does he do that?
100%. What I love about him is he is a very naturally curious person, but the curiosity just doesn't have a boundary. So he walked into your studio space here and he wants to see and touch and feel everything, which is a great energy to have. But at some point it's like, time to go to bed, dude. Like, let's wrap it up.
Now, you don't have it.
I do not. No, I have. So I have my own bag of tricks. So when you're talking about the hormones part, so famously underdiagnosed are the highly intelligent. So if your son was highly intelligent, they don't get diagnosed because they're not problems, right? Yeah. And academically, and women and people of color also get underdiagnosed. But the issue with women is because our hormones are so much more fierce and happen very different periods in our lives, it is exacerbated. So your anxiety and depression, if you're going through perimenopause, it's like you put a blowtorch on it. ADHD, if you're a woman and you're going through puberty, you've just had a baby, menopause, like it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's super duper hard. Yeah.
What about meds for you? I think I know the answer. In my case, I was on the radio when we tried Ritalin, and I thought it was working. And the doctor said, you'll know right away, because if you have the deficit, the brain deficit, you'll know. So I took the Ritalin on a Saturday, because I wasn't on the air, and I wrote 3 books. I did the neighbor's lawn. I built 2 houses. Sunday, I did the equivalent work. And on Monday, I went in and did the show and thought I was fine, except everybody related with the show called my program director and said, Peter's having a meltdown. And my program director called me in the car and said, what's wrong? Ooh. And through tears, I said, I don't think anything. So that was Ritalin. Obviously not the right medication for me. But we found the right medication, and I knew it because when I took it, it felt like it did nothing other than gave me a little, like you go, wait a minute. It feels like something has lifted a bit, and a little bit of the depression was gone. Is that the same thing that happened with you?
I only took one type of medicine, and I did. It was yours. You sounded like you took one. You tried one as a stimulant, and you tried a non-stimulant, and one of them worked better. And that's just the bottom line: is that one of them usually works better than another one. I took, dude. It was called Dexedrine.
Sounds like a diet pill.
I remember it.
I lost
Dexatrim. Dexatrim was the
but honestly, I wonder if it wasn't Dexedrine, because I lost a ton of I lost weight. I didn't want to. I don't want to lose weight, and especially in college. But it got me through college. I had I mixed it with alcohol. That's stupid.
So maybe that's why it didn't really work.
Just added that a little bit, that everything was with a mixer. Wow.
Yeah.
He chased it with
I mean,
the
I was
beer.
in college. So I'm sure I should never recommend that to anyone ever in history, but I was able to graduate. I think the biggest thing that I noticed was that I didn't feel like, personally, I did not feel like myself. I was getting all of these tasks done, but the core of who I was, and this is just me, was that CEO that let everything in, that allowed all of these ideas to come to him, and was okay if sometimes I got a little bit sad, because also I would get, like, this brain that I have, when you let everything in, like when I was on my way to come see you guys, I had an exit row seat, and I had no chair in front of me. So I had the most legroom I've ever had. I looked out my window, and like the Sierra Nevadas were there, and I'm like, I'm going to meet George, and I'm on an airplane going to LA, and the weather is better here. And I was so filled with unbelievable joy, and someone could have come by and like sprayed me with shit, and I would not have cared, because I was so happy. Like, those highs and lows are part of.
I was like,
I think
my
she
seat was
thinks
a little
that might
further
have
up in the plane, so I would have been safe from the shit spray.
Yeah, I was, but like those moments, those highs and those lows, and just that life, to me, I didn't feel like I was feeling it the same way when I was on those meds. Again,
but can I say also that medicine does work for 99% of people. Our son was on medicine,
100%,
and it's the summer. He's not on. He may go back on it, so I don't want to shame anybody for taking.
But
do you wish he was still on the medication?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
No, but I would say I love his brain, and because right now we have a really strange job. We're on the internet, and singing and dancing and making comedy. Right. So I love the way he sees the world, and I think his unmedicated brain is the reason why we are successful at this. And I think any ADHD person would tell you, if you're in the right job, you don't notice your symptoms. He doesn't notice his symptoms as much. But if you were if you were a tax law attorney, like, you would probably notice your symptoms a lot, right? But I think I would say 99% of the time I love his brain. Sometimes I really need to have a conversation with him. Yeah. And I know he's trying so hard. Like, his shoulders are squared. He has the phone down, and he's like tapping. He's like trying to listen. He's like, I'm in it. I love you. I got this. And he's trying super hard. So that it's hard to see him struggle with basic marriage stuff. So is that fair?
Can I would just want to, because I don't want it to get lost. You mentioned your children. I don't want you to talk about your kids in any way that you don't want to, but is any part of this condition seemingly genetic or hereditary, and are they dealing? And if they are dealing with it, would they agree with you that it's a kind of a superpower, or are they having more struggles because of their age and where they are in life?
My son has ADHD. he was diagnosed about a year ago.
2 years.
2 years. Sorry, 2 years ago. I think he's happy to have someone who walks the journey with him.
Yeah.
It is 100% hereditary. That's science says it. In fact, we've had a lot of people who have bought this book and they've bought it for their children and they've offered to read it with their children. And halfway through they slam the book and they say, "Oh crap.
This is me."
I have this too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I think that it was interesting because this is research based. So we'd been doing research for about 5 years, and our son, I was the one who took both of our kids to get, looked at. I don't know what's the word. Like examined. You do like 3 days of
evaluated.
Tests. Evaluated. Sorry, words are hard. My daughter, no, she does not. And then my son, it was like flaming, scorching. But again, academically gifted, not hyperactive, but some things were a struggle where others were not. We did not write about him in the book, but now he's 14 and he wanted to be a part of the story.
That's great.
Because he's proud of his brain. And he knows he is not your typical 14-year-old in that he's a sweet kid and he's a brilliant writer and loves comedy and he's like a little, like he's just a little different than your average 14-year-old kid and he loves it. As opposed to, I think when Penn was 14, he was trying to struggle and he was trying to be a cool kid. Like all
you guys made it a brand, but I'm laughing because I just want to point out something because there's a subtext of comedy here. The sensitivity of that hyper disability is all negative, and you just said, "Oh, we took him, and he's flaming."
No.
Scorching.
I just said diagnosis.
Scorching.
The doctor said you're flaming.
You have a scorching case of ADHD, and because of his dad is who he is. But I have to say, even sitting in that doctor's office with the psychiatrist, going through everything, the way that the diagnosis was delivered, it felt like my son was being diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. They're like, "Okay, there's a treatment option. You can do this, and like it was." And I already knew better, but I came out. I was pretty.
It's a
wrong.
thing. It's a thing.
Yeah, I was
You
really
and they
rattled.
say it in front of the kid.
And in front of my son, and so he was really rattled. I'm like, okay, yes, there are. When you have ADHD, you are more likely to XYZ. Like all of these statistics are out there, but you have to do the work. But there is a great life out there. So he's really owning it in a way that I'm very proud.
So I'm sorry, Peter, let me just follow up for 1 second. So do you find you now have two people you love in your life who are very different but are dealing with the same thing. Do you find you have to deal with each of them different? I'm always, when I meet people who are caretakers for people who have chronic illnesses, I'm fascinated by the person who's dealing with the chronic illness because I think that's a whole journey in of itself. Yeah. But I'm so fascinated by the caretaker. You're not a caretaker, but you are a mom and a wife to these gentlemen. Yeah. What is that journey for you, and how different is it for dealing with each of them, and what does it cost you or give you to play that role?
Well, thank you for the question. In our house, ADHD is an explanation. It's not an excuse. So it might explain why my husband leaves the house without shoes on and gets to the place and realizes it explains it, but I'm not his executive functioning, nor my son. So he has to come. I'm not going to bring him his shoes. By the way, this happened like last month. So they still have to take responsibility for their actions. Again, I think that what is the term? Like it's a delay, not like my son is just more delayed. Yeah. So I have to say I have to offer a lot more grace. Like I still have to remind in ways you wouldn't think you would have to remind a 14-year-old. But my son or my husband has done the work and takes all responsibility for his stuff. Like we came to LA and we had some stuff to do yesterday, but then we also were staying at a hotel with this great pool. He didn't bring a bathing suit, but he's like, oh, well, like here we are. So like he figured that out. It wasn't going to be my problem. So I would say in the beginning.
And you said he looks great naked.
He looks so good naked.
Well, everybody wins. Okay.
So I would say in the beginning, people would joke, oh, it's like you have 3 kids. I never found that was funny, but I did take on the executive functioning role for everybody in my family. And then I had to do my own work and stop that. So I'm much more, I think I'm in a better place now. It's
super important that if you're an adult and you have ADHD and you have someone who loves you enough to work with you on this, to just acknowledge like anything you can do to help lighten a mental load that you probably can't even fathom how heavy it is, especially if you're raising kids, I think it does wonders to help that relationship out. So I'm trying to do that. But I also, yes, I had to walk barefoot into a restaurant to get carry out because I forgot my shoes. I almost burned the house down one time, several times, leaving the stove on. I had her asked her to drive like 150 miles to a beach place because I couldn't find my keys. And when she got there, she found them on top of the car, like just as she was walking up. Like we're littered with these sort of nightmarish stories of what's gone on.
But in fairness, you deal with my crap.
Oh,
So,
yeah. We can, that's the next podcast.
Well, no, that's the next podcast.
Yeah.
No, but so diagnosing
My crap.
my
Kim
crap.
Holderness.
But so I think that's so on my high anxiety days, like when you walk with anxiety, some days are like I'm in the middle of the grocery store and I see spaghetti sauce and I'm like I have to abandon the cart because I'm like I don't know why, but this is like, and so I call him. I'm like, hey, dude, you're gonna have to pick this up, and he's like, I got it, I'm on it. So I think that we match each other's crazy.
Well, you figured it out. So when you were talking, God, it hit so home that him listening to you. I love my wife. We work together. She's in a field, an editor. I respect her. She always asks me opinion. She's got about a minute and a half to figure it out. And Jason knows this, and even people who work with me say it, but yeah, I get it. Just get to the end so I can fix it.
Yeah.
And she would always say to me, I don't need solutions. I need you to listen. And I go, okay.
It's so hard.
And it's like putting me in a straitjacket, and that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's if I may. That
I don't have time for this.
That's male and female.
It is.
My
but
wife
it's-
and I don't have any of this, but that's our thing.
Except
She'll say,
that-
I don't need you to fix it. I need you to listen. And I go, why am I listening? Don't you want some help? What, you just want to talk to the dog if you just want listening.
Take the male and female stuff and then put it on steroids.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, I can't even. You know how you saw I had misophonia that really does
Yeah,
drive me
yeah.
crazy. I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm looking at her and I'm going, I love you, but I'm going to strangle you in about 38 seconds if you don't get to the. Here's what I would. So that's number one. So the first question is this on a spectrum? I think you're probably going to say, yeah. Is there a spectrum?
Of ADHD.
Of ADHD.
Oh God, yeah. And not only that, they're snowflakes, right? There's just so many different types of ADHD and types of people. It gets along super well with other disorders.
Yeah, it's friends with
instead of
autism.
Sagittarius and Pisces,
Yes.
it's
The moon phases line up with autism, anxiety. Yeah.
No, I
love
mean, like
that.
you can have ADHD and then a lot of times you'll have other stuff as well. Dyslexia,
Oh, no
sometimes
kidding.
you'll
No
have, but I'm just going back to what you said. You're like, I bet you want to make your wife happy, right? Like there's one of the big things
100%.
about ADHD people is things that are of personal interest to us, like we can really give it our all. And your wife, it sounds like she's a personal interest to you. It sounds like you love her and all you want to do is make her happy.
hyper-aware. Even
Yeah.
with him, Jason's my closest friend. During COVID, I felt like I changed and I came off the medication. And I would ask Jason a lot, have I changed? Is my temper different? Is my patience different? Because I was more isolated.
And I would depressedly go, no.
And this is the man I trust. So let's segue, if we may, to the awesome part. Awesomeness
Because we should
Yeah.
say we haven't done this, and I'm sure we'll go back and do it. But among other things, we talked about winning the Amazing Race, but you guys, I assume, co-authored ADHD is Awesome, a guide to mostly thriving with ADHD, which was an instant New York Times bestseller, came out last April. And so
course it was a
This is
bestseller.
your area. This is
your area.
ADHD is. Where do I sign up? I mean,
Yeah. So awesome, right? We chose that word carefully, and we chose it intentionally, knowing that it might get some attention and it might have people say, "What the hell are you talking about?" The first page of the
Or
book,
as I said to you when I met you, F you.
Yeah, exactly.
F you, awesome.
Exactly.
And
Right.
yeah, there's been some of that too. They're like, this is remarkably unawesome. How dare you?
right.
Yeah.
if you open the first page of the book, it has the definition of awesome, which, did you know, it means inspiring great admiration or fear. It means the way that awesome used to be used in the English language was freaking terrifying.
yeah, Goliath was awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, right.
I think that ADHD is powerful. I think that it's incredibly impressive when you are able to perform in certain ways. You've made an entire career in the entertainment business because your brain gravitates toward creativity and things that interest you, and it makes its way onto successful content because of the same thing that causes you to fidget. Okay. All of those things you talked about as a child, fidgeting, having trouble focusing, it's what makes you creative.
But it was survival, not awesome. Not like, oh boy, thank you for this gift. Yeah.
It sucked. It sucked. ADHD sometimes sucks. Most of the time. I told you my story. It sucked. But I realized, and this is really the crux of the book, that same type of brain is prone to phenomenal outside the box thinking, creativity, pure joy from time to time, and great potential. But yes, it is scary. It leads to things burning down inside the house. And so the true sense of the word awesome, I think it fits. But sometimes I have to explain that to people so they don't throw the book at me.
And can you tell, I know they're in the book, ways to maneuver that you found to maneuver and trick it, that somebody listening may now say, oh, that was actionable for me. It saved me.
Yes. So whether or not you're on medication, there are behavioral interventions and systems that everyone who has this type of brain need to put in place. Any doctor will tell you that, whether or not you're on medication. And most people just do them organically. Like, I'm sure you have some systems in place in your life that you're not even aware of. Like, do you, let's see, do you have a specific place where you have to put your keys? Are you a forgetful type of person?
I'm not forgetful at all, I'm the opposite. But yes, I'm not forgetful because I do have systems in place.
Right. So you've been putting them in place. Like, I have weird stuff. I for the longest time, and I know I did this last night, so I'm not perfect, but for a very, very long time, I just forget to put the toilet seat down. It's gross. I'm sorry, but like guys, like they pee one way. And so I just started sitting down every time I peed. Like, I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to sit down every single time. It's a long trip for me, but I'm going to go down there and I'm going to, and
it's quite tall. For those of you not watching on YouTube.
And I'm going to get back up. And that is a system you put in place because
he really does love you.
Yeah. Because
he super loves me. Also, he has a magnet on top of his car because he's also a giant and he could see the top of his car. But he was walking out every morning and putting a coffee cup there and then getting into the car, and then splat goes like the plate of eggs, the coffee cup. Okay. So the magnet doesn't hold anything, but it's just that visual interruption.
Can I ask you a dumb question? Because I did this, and I'm not proud of it, a couple of weeks ago, and I was cognizant, I wasn't rushing, and I don't forget stuff, and I pulled out of the gas station with the thing still in the...
Yeah. So that didn't enter
Did you really?
Yeah.
It's the second time I've done it in 10 years.
So
you never told me that.
I walked out of the gas station. This time it popped out, and I ran and put it back in and left. The last time before that, I didn't know they're made to break off.
Yeah.
And then they will charge you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I know that too.
So you've done it. Okay, great.
So,
thank you.
Well, Jason, our brains, we get to the gas station and we put the thing in, and then we clean out the car while it's filling up, and we use the hand sanitizer and we take it out but their brains, they're so busy, they're on to the next step where they're going.
I took 2 vacations while it was filling.
Yeah, so they're on to what that's happening. So that was his,
okay.
Was that your genitals talking?
That was his genitals.
Oh my God!
I told you they're
genitals talk.
Siri just said
very
Your genitals said okay.
It is a superpower.
It's not a phone ringing. Wow. Where do I get one of those? Yeah.
So it doesn't enter your working memory the way it does ours.
Mm-hmm. Right,
so when I learned that as a mom, as a wife, I was able to extend a lot more grace for I cannot believe, like I told you, this one thing you needed to bring to school, this one thing in the morning. But, he had to like get on his shoes and eat breakfast and comb his hair and brush his teeth and all this stuff. So like that one thing didn't enter. So now I've been able to offer a lot more grace doing that.
I have to ask you this question. So when you began dating, now I'm not just being sweet. He's a very good looking
so
man.
handsome.
And you seem as lovely a human being as I've met. So obviously you go on a date and you go, this is great.
Amazing.
Then this stuff starts to appear. And at some point you have to go, all right, I can handle it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it.
So,
what was that moment where you went, oh, I see what the whole package is here?
I will say all of the things that I fell in love with, if you unravel it, are his ADHD. The first time I saw him, he was doing the worm at a dance club on the stage and into a backspin, and he landed like this. And I told my friends, I'm like, stand back, that's my husband. Like I was like, that's him. I'm sorry. And then very quickly, just the conversation, the impulsivity, like all of those things. are why I fell in love. But then,
but unfortunately, the answer to the question is it was when we were engaged and we had to live in a New York apartment with like one room.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't realize
That
what
was-
how
And the toilet seat was up. I get
and,
it.
and a lot more than that. I mean, this is a very small space, and so yes, we got there, but I found it to be incredibly charming.
Yeah.
And then once we had to work out our stuff. It is, and we got there. But it was an adjustment.
I think it's great. Before
Yeah.
we got to run, but I want to ask you the final question about influencers. Every kid wants to be an influencer today. Everybody wants to be an influencer. How big is the podcast going? You guys are a sensation, but it must be the amount of work to do that successfully has to be a full time.
Yeah.
And you're churning out stuff, and you have a staff and whatever. I mean, because you're putting up videos where you're doing parody songs, you're doing scenes.
Which, by
from
the way,
movies.
you're singing and driving at the same time. And with a person with ADHD, I'm not sure I want to condone.
Very, very happy to say that those are either on closed roads or I'm not actually driving. And we're making it look like we're driving.
So if you can just wrap it, but by explaining to people what it takes to have be a successful influencer and have other revenue streams. Because right now, everybody at home is trying to be you, an influencer, and find the thing. Was it organic? Did it just happen, and then you figured out how to build it?
Yeah. So we both started in local news. And so if honestly, video influencing and YouTube didn't exist when we started. We made $13,000 a piece, and we were one-man bands. If you guys ever know anybody who used to be in the news, I wanted to be Matt Lauer, not anymore. She wanted to be Katie Couric. And so we would haul a camera, and we would go home, we would edit it, and then we would throw on a tie or makeup or whatever and go and do the news. And then for years and years we did that, hoping that we could get to the point where we'd be like the anchor sitting at the desk talking like that. And that was sort of the brass ring. But as it turned out, we quit our jobs because we never saw our kids. The hours for local news are from 3 to midnight, either in the morning or at night. So you don't see them very much. Kim had started working and putting together a production company where we could make videos for other people and just not have, get control of our own schedules.
Yeah. And so I convinced him to quit his job in 2013. I said, I think we have enough clients. We had 2 kids, 2 months in savings. And I said, I think we have enough clients with like a real estate, a banker, a dentist, that we could offset your salary. And we had to like buy benefits and the whole thing. But we were so miserable. So I'm like, or we'll go work at the grocery store. Like there was no ego in it. I said, we should do a video to kind of announce this. And then we put out he wrote a parody song. It was called Christmas Jammies. And we danced around it in our Christmas Jammies. And it got it was a slow news week. So it got 17 million views, but it was on the Today Show, it was on GMA. It was on all of the news shows. So it kind of spread like that. We, again, are very slow learners. So we still just did work behind the scenes for a couple of years, but brands kept reaching out to us. So it happened very organically. We had no business plan to do this, but then now it is sort of a dream. We get to, even today I was texting, like I thought of something. I'm like, oh, this could be like a really funny little sketch. It forces us in the best possible way to look at the world and ask, is that funny? Is that a song? Is that a sketch? And so we get to make stupid videos every day. And yeah.
But the part about it that's crazy is that like starving local news job where we had to do 3 stories a day and shoot our own stuff and edit our own stuff suddenly became valuable again.
Best primer, yeah.
In the influencer space, she can shoot, I can shoot, we can both edit. And we have people help us do it right now. But for the most part, if you want to be an influencer, you're asking that question, learn how to edit, learn how to write, and be yourself.
And I also hate the word influencer. I think that
what would you like to call it?
I don't know, like content. I don't know.
I
think.
Well, you are a content creator, but you're influencing people in a way. So how big is your audience at this point?
There's like 5 million on Facebook and 1 million something on Instagram and
do you ever
TikTok.
worry? Do you guys sit down and go, oh, the numbers dropped?
No.
We probably got 2 more years in this. There's going to be another couple.
No, we're constantly worried that people are going to be sick of us, and then we'll just go work at like Starbucks.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
I think the reason it works is because we were reluctant influencers, if you will. Like this wasn't the dream. And so I think we get to do these cool things, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, that's fine.
Well, you know what? Your stuff is adorable. Check out the website.
Thank
I hate to
you.
use just the word adorable because it's smart, it's funny. And there's another part of this that's just the fact that you too work at it, that people get to see that this is not a solo mission.
There's also, I was going to say, what I get from hanging with you guys a little bit is you're not only showing, kind of how do you make your way dealing with any kind of a condition, but you two are very serious about having a working marital relationship. And I think that, there's not enough emphasis on, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
To, being with somebody and being dedicated to that and making it work, you have to put some thought and effort and work into it. You have to make compromises. You have to, and I think the very nature of what you're doing together as I watch the videos is how to be a kind of conscious family.
Yeah.
And, it's really lovely. So
And you enjoy yourself.
Instagram,
You can
YouTube, where else, anywhere else people find you if they need want to
Facebook,
come look?
TikTok,
Yeah.
podcasts, all the things.
All the stuff.
All the things. Thank you. That means a lot. And we say it all the time. We'd rather be married than do whatever it is this is. So that is, being married is the priority.
It's magic. It's magic. I mean, you get to work it out. And it's also the respect. You got to have respect for each other. Because I'm sure you go, what video do you want to do? Why?
Yeah.
And then you go, I'll buy in if you want to do it. Okay.
If you take your shirt off, I'm in.
Yeah. we came up with the dumbest idea ever for a video, and we shot it yesterday, and we had so much fun in Los Angeles. And I think we may be recruiting Jason to be the button on the video.
Okay, well, that's great. If he could be in the dumbest video you've ever done,
Yeah.
It's not
I'm
dumb.
happy.
It's really funny.
No, it's dumb. By dumb, I mean it's really funny.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah,
you'll
that's
have
the
to
goal.
check it. You'll have to check out check them out.
I know we can talk to your
See if Jason said yes, we'll get the
Put in
attorney.
the word negotiation. I know you can hear me because you can hear a lot of things at the same time. So just put in the word negotiation.
retainer.
And by the way, do we have to
Retainer.
call the lawyer, the agent, the whole bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because I have a different kind of condition called additional people that I carry.
I understand. Penn and Kim Holderness, thanks so much. It was really a pleasure. And it resonated. This one resonated for me in such a big way, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.